Hey everybody, this is Dr. Maples here to finish up our theory lecture series. We're learning how we use theory in interesting, subtle ways to help us as research methodology people. All right. What we're going to do now is follow through a couple of slides that Dr. Paolucci has created to help us understand situations in which we might use theory to do different things. Well, we've broken down theory a couple of ways. We've broke it down into sizes of theory, micro, meso, macro. We've broken it down so far as when you use theory, inductive versus deductive. Now we're going to follow through on these four ideas that you'll be talking about in Sociology 462 that explain how or why you'd be using the theories that you'll be thinking about at any point in your paper. Now, the first one that Dr. Paolucci presents is the idea of prediction. We use our theories to predict what's going to happen. So in this case, we're expecting that a variable we might be looking at will change another variable in a very specific way. I gave you my example that I thought students who miss more classes will have lower grades. Well, that's a good example of predicting. Cool thing about sociology is we are one of the very few fields that really get to do this kind of prediction for our society, and we do it very well. It's exciting because we can predict if this happens, then this would happen. For example, if I lower educational attainment in a series of counties in a state, statistically speaking, we have all the evidence in the world to expect that the number of teenage pregnancies will increase over time. And we have many theories to support that idea. So here we're using theory to help us predict what could happen. That's exciting. Let's look at another one. We also can use theories to describe what's happening. So maybe an empirical reality that's happening can be captured in words because we use a theory. This is a case where we might use ideas from a theoretical tradition to help describe things. In Paul's words, the thick description to answer, what does this look like? What are the parameters? I thought about this in terms of Uneven Ground. It's an excellent book that Ronald Eller at University of Kentucky wrote to try and argue how Appalachia was shaped by the history of things that had come before it. And in his case, he uses a very deductive approach to look at that. But he describes the history using this uneven development theory is the idea that he pursues, and uses to show how the state just didn't develop the same as other places because we were often exporting our resources to other locations and not really benefiting from it in the long time, or the long perspective. So with description, we're describing what we see. Predictive, we predict the relationship. Here, we're describing what's actually happening. Let's look at a third one. We can also use theories to help us explain what's happening. So if we wanted to think about prediction, it gives us an idea of what changes we might expect, but an explanation tells us exactly why those changes happened. I like to think about, again, my dissertation here, a very deductive piece where I used labor queuing theory to explain how the labor market just functioned differently for people who were in minority categories. But also, not only was there a predictive element there, but it also showed the result of that over time and how it functioned as a whole. So to give you an idea of this, with labor queuing theory, the people who have used this idea as a theoretical perspective have argued for quite a long time that if you are in a minority, you experience the labor market differently. And the reasons that you experience the labor market differently range from discrimination to unequal treatment to limitations on your mobility, prejudice, racism. These are all reasons that you experience the labor market very differently. And because of that, we can also show predictively that over time, it results in you often taking jobs that are less favorable, being disappointed with the labor market, being dissatisfied rightfully with the labor market, and more. So this is a good example of using a theory to explain what's happening. Not only did it predict what happened, but it explained how that process occurred in our society. And it gives us an idea, too, of what it means for the long run. We've got one more idea here. Dr. Paolucci talks about how theory can help us interpret. Now, this gives us a sense of what has happened in a particular place, why it happened, when it happens, and how it happens. this is cool because it's a theory that can be used to give us a sense of a very big understanding of a situation. And it's also cool because it can really include these other three forms of using theory to kind of help along the way. I always think of John Gaventa's work here on Eastern Kentucky. He wrote a book called Power and Powerlessness, and it made the argument that Eastern Kentuckians, but also Central Appalachians as a whole, they often basically had no power to change the situation that they experienced when coal extraction was a really important part of our economy. He found that even though residents would be involved in things like voting or making decisions, they often argued or voted against their well-being. And he used various ideas on power to try and understand how their experiences were shaped at the individual level, at the meso, and even the macro level, so that it changed how they would vote. It's a very exciting book, and you can find it on Amazon for 99 cents most of the time. Again, here he used theory in many different ways to interpret what was happening overall. So we have a couple of different ways that we can think about using a theory. We've talked about it in terms of the levels that we might use it. We've talked about when we might use it. And Dr. Paolucci has gratefully given us some ways in which we might put theory into practice for us. Theories are a really great way for you to engage sociology. And I've got something very important to say about that. One of the greatest things that you can do as a student to become a better sociology major is to get a decent grasp, not even a great grasp, just a decent grasp on theory. Be able to put it into action, take it and apply it to the things that are happening around you. Take it and apply it to the experiences that you see out there in our society. I promise you that theory class and getting a chance to use theory as part of your thesis and a little bit in this class will help you be a better sociology major. Now that wraps things up for this particular project. What we're going to do now, wraps things up for this particular lecture. Now, what we're going to do now is switch over to starting to get into the meat of things. First off, we're going to work on our certification to show that we are ethical researchers. So you're going to have an assignment coming up with the next lecture to get your CITI, or I simply call it CITI certification from EKU, to show that you are an ethical researcher. And you'll actually take a short class that usually takes about an hour, but it's completely free through EKU online to get that certificate. And you'll turn in a copy of that certificate as part of this lecture series that's coming up. So when you're finished with this one and you've taken all the notes that you need to, go ahead and turn over to our third lecture, and we'll begin talking a little bit about ethics. This will be a shorter lecture because the course that you're going to take is going to go into a lot of detail, and I'm going to let them give that information to you rather than hitting you with it twice and wasting your time. All right, I'm looking forward to that one. If you got questions, you know where to find me. If you have concerns, if you have anything going wrong, feel free to write me. Likewise, if you're having issues as a student in this class or any class, feel free to get in touch with me and let's see if we can find a solution. Look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. Bye.